I'm Lee and this is my podcast about my handmade life. You can find me on Instagram as Louleigh_, on Ravelry as Louleigh, and I have an Etsy shop where I sell knitting needle cases and notions cases at Shop Louleigh, but you can find links to all of my online places at louleigh.com. Welcome. It's really nice to be sitting here and having a chat with you this morning. There are a few things that I haven't written down on my show notes, and so if I seem a little bit distracted, I'm just trying to keep them in my mind, which probably wasn't a good idea. It's always much better to make it a list and then to free your mind. So the first thing is about the things that I wear on the podcast. I do sometimes mention what I'm wearing, and today I'm wearing Enchanted Mesa by Stephen West, but I tend to wear the same things over and over. Hi, come on up. I had thought that my little hairy co-host here wasn't going to join us today because he was in bed having a long lie with the hairy man, and so I'd closed the door just to keep out the residual noise, but apparently this is not the case. He has decided that coming to see you guys is worth getting up for, so here we go. There we go. He's been groomed this week especially for you, so he's looking rather handsome. I shouldn't tell you that, you know you look handsome. So as I was saying, I don't always mention what I'm wearing because I wear the same things often and I don't want to bore you all. So, but I do get a lot of questions about what I wear on the podcast, so I will always link it in the show notes. Today I'm wearing Stephen West. This is the first time this autumn, that I'm wearing Stephen West. Today I'm wearing Enchanted Mesa. This is the first time this winter that I have got this out, and this is one of my favourite jerseys. I like it because I've knitted it entirely in undyed blacker DK weight yarns. A lot of the yarns were bits and pieces that I had left over in my stash, and then I made an order from Blacker for, I think it was about 3 or 4 balls of a colour that I thought would just look good on me and tie it all together. I'm really pleased with the result. I think it shows off the yarns really nicely and in a real fun way. People often comment on this when I wear it out, but it is a jersey that I tend to throw over things just when I'm around the house actually. So for example, today I've just put it on top of my yoga clothes. I was hanging out the washing and doing some things outside and it was a bit chilly, but I actually think it's already warming up enough that I might get a little bit hot in this jumper. Yeah, so it's really good fun to wear. I knitted it exactly as per the pattern. It does have this dropped armpit, and I do put a coat on over top of it if I'm going out, and it does ride up, and I think my coat is loose enough that it doesn't actually bother me that much. I just pull it down when I take the coat off. But I really enjoy wearing it, and as I say, it's always a talking point where I wear it out. I wear it a lot, so it probably needs depilling. So the upshot of that little chat was that if I don't mention what I'm wearing, I will try and remember to put it in the show notes so that you can always find it there. But as I say, you're likely to see this a lot over the winter, and I don't want to bore you all. There are a couple of things that I want to mention in community news today. The first one is something I've been meaning to talk about for ages and just keep forgetting. So the last time I remembered it pretty much immediately after I recorded, so I made a note of it straight away. And that is the tricky toile along. This is an along that is being hosted by Meg from Mrs M's Curiosity Cabinet, and we had a cup of coffee and a very nice day out back in August and discussed having a toile along, because we both find that making a toile or a muslin is really helpful in terms of elevating our finished garments and correcting fit problems. And I know that some of you have been inspired to make a toile or a muslin as well. So Meg has a thread over in her Ravelry group, and if you are fitting garments and making a toile out of scrap fabric, or just making a wearable toile, please pop over there and join in, because I think that fitting is something that it can be really difficult to know what to adjust, and so sometimes it's nice to have a second opinion, and it's always valuable to learn from other people's experience, because sometimes what you think you need to adjust isn't actually the thing. By tricky toile, I think Meg means tricky to you. So if you're a beginner sewer and you're just making a simple top pattern or a camisole, don't feel like you need to be making something complicated like trousers. I did think about opening a thread for this in my group as well, but I think it's really valuable to consolidate all the information together. So yes, I shall be popping into that thread and joining in, and I hope you will too. The other thing that I have to mention is Knit 1000 grams, which is still going on in the Louleigh Ravelry group. Yeah, so there's a bit of conversation around that, and it's really nice to go through and see your finished objects. I'm really enjoying that element of it, and seeing how you're using yarns together, that's fun as well, and stash diving and choosing things to put together. So if you do have some goals around stashing down, please come and join us. This is the resolutions segment. I often set goals for myself, and I don't always say them out loud. I like to feel like I'm really committed to something before I tell other people I'm going to do it. And this particular resolution is making me super nervous. So I have resolved that I am only going to make things with materials that I already have in my house until Christmas. And I can already think of 2 reasons to not go through with this resolution. So the first one is that I'm planning to make another trouser toile, and I'm not sure I have enough scrap fabric for that. And usually I would just nip along to the charity shop and see if they had some sheets that weren't suitable for resale. Sometimes they're a bit thin to put out on the shop floor, or just to choose a really ugly duvet cover or something like that that they've had around for a while. But according to my resolution, I have to use stuff that I have in my house, so I might have to think creatively about what I do for that. The other thing that's making me nervous is that I have just finished a project and I want to make the same sort of thing again, and I would love to just nip out to our local shop and have the fun of choosing something new. But I also know that I have plenty of materials in my house that I could experiment with and learn with before I do that. So I've decided that that little shopping expedition will be my reward. I'm going to go down to our local quilt fabric shop on the last day they're open before Christmas and get myself a lovely selection of coordinated fabrics, so that I can start a new quilt between Christmas and New Year. I think that will be a really good sort of reward for having complied with my resolution. I think as soon as I resolve to do it, you just want to go and shop for all the things. But like I say, I've got wonderful things already in my house. I've got kits for things, I've got projects that I've bought all the things to complete, and so I think it's going to be really exciting to dig around and actually use that stuff. In all honesty, I've probably got enough projects in the house that are half finished to keep me going until Christmas. So I had thought about making it go through to the Edinburgh Yarn Festival. We'll see how we go with that one. So that's the resolution segment. This is the sock segment, and last week I decided just to crack on and finish the tube of knitting that I keep in my car. So basically I had just started the self-striping yarn. I'd put a little bit of rib at the top, and my goal was to just knit the whole ball until it was finished, and then I put a little bit of ribbing at the other end. So that's what I've done, and now I have a whole lot of tube socks. I didn't measure to see how long the ball had, how long the tube had become. I just thought that it looked like it could make 2 pairs of socks. I used the circumference numbers from Jane Richmond's tube sock pattern. I tend to put in my own types of toes. I don't start them as she specifies, because obviously I just made a tube and then cut it apart. But I find that it's quite useful just to have the stitch count for the circumference of the socks. I've made the largest size because all of my nieces and nephews are getting larger, and this size seems to be quite versatile. And then, so this is a Desert Vista Dye Works, and I can't remember what the name of the colourway is. I was gifted this quite some time ago, so it's really exciting to have knitted it up and to use it. And then I've used some Phileas yarn. Yeah, Phileas yarns. I'm just trying to think what the name of the yarn width and the colourway. No, the tag is not lying around here, but it'll be on the project page for this as well. So I've just put in these little navy heels and toes. On this one I'd done the cuffs at each end, and when I first started making tube socks this way, it bothered me that the cast on and the cast off looked quite different. So this is the cast on here, and this is a old Norwegian or German twisted cast on, and then I do a sewn cast off as described by Elizabeth Zimmerman in her books. And it did annoy me that they look quite different. I've done this a few times, definitely a couple of times now. It bothered me until I actually saw a couple of my nieces and nephews wearing their tube socks, and when they're on you really can't tell, and they just don't care. So I've decided not to care as well. Like I say, when they're stretched out it really doesn't make too much difference, and they're so not bothered. Whenever I see the tube socks that I've made again, they're always really pilly and soft and well worn, which is so gratifying. So I've decided not to be bothered that that's different. They don't mind, but they really, really love the socks and keep requesting more. So that's a really fun thing. So with this pair, I've just done the toes in the navy colourway, and then of course there was a section in the middle where I didn't have ribbing, so I've added on ribbing too in the navy there and done the toes on this pair. And I'm really excited just to pop these in the mail. I think at least one pair is going to New Zealand, if not both of them. They're coming into summer, but I think they'll still enjoy a nice pair of stripy socks for a little while yet. Maybe they'll be into sandal weather now. Anyway, they'll be all ready for next year. And really good fun. It's so nice to send them just a little something in an envelope, because of course when you're wee like that, getting mail is just the most exciting thing ever. I don't know, it was when I was growing up. I hope it still is. So yes, those are, it's quite a nice little stack of tube socks to be sending off. Good fun, really good fun. Since I spoke to you last, I had a bit of a setback with the Jones cardigan. I was charging along. I thought next time I showed it to you it was gonna be finished. This is a pattern, a beautiful cable pattern by Tin Can Knits. Lots of fun and super easy. But I had on one side of the, actually let me take a step back. So I had finished both the sleeves and was picking up stitches for the neckband when I noticed that one side of the V-neck was longer than the other. And at first I thought I had just mucked up the increases or something. I thought I'd started them a bit earlier, but how could that be possible when I had knitted this whole section, this whole body section all in one piece? And in the end I realised that I had actually done the decreases on one side 2 rows further apart than the decreases on the other side. So the whole of this side of the cardigan was longer than it was supposed to be. So I ripped back the entire sleeve. I decided to, I've stopped putting things in the naughty corner because it just wastes good knitting time. So I ripped back the sleeve and I ripped back the front there and just did it again. And I am just on the cuff of the sleeve now, and then I'll go back to picking up those stitches for the front of the cardigan. Maybe next time? I always say maybe next time and then never do it. It always takes me like 2 weeks after that or something. We shall see. The next time you see Jones, it'll be finished. There we go. And finally, I have been sewing. Last time I spoke to you, I said that I had some quilt pieces that have been hanging up here in the factory for quite some time. I started it last year for the Brooklyn Knit Folk quilt along and then rapidly didn't finish it before Christmas. So we had a wonderful speaker at the Weavers, Spinners and Dyers Guild who was so knowledgeable about Japanese textiles and gave us a wonderful talk, and she brought along lots and lots of fun things from her shop, and I purchased a lovely charm pack of just assorted cotton prints. So these sorts of prints here, I'll open this up in a minute so you can see more of them. So I had done a little bit of scouting around for charm pack quilts, and I came across the charm pack cherry quilt, which is a free pattern from the Fat Quarter shop, and you actually need 2 charm packs for the patterned colour. I think it's about 40 squares that you need, and then the pattern suggests that you get 2 charm packs of a plain fabric, but I had some of this blue linen already, and so I just decided to buy some more of that. And so it's really good fun and definitely beginner friendly. If you're a beginner to patchwork, then this is a good one to start with. The pattern's really simple, but it's really well laid out, and one of the things I like is that it has pressing guides on it so that you can nest your seams and they fit together much more neatly. You tend to get, I have a higher ratio of sharp corners where these corners meet up correctly when I do that. There's also a video on YouTube that you can follow that's really good as well. So if you're new to patchwork and quilting, it's a good one to start with. You can just make it with bits and pieces. If you've got a lot of scrap fabrics and things, you could just cut them up. And it's basically based on making 9 patch squares that you then slice in half and sew together to make this oblong and square configuration. So yes, so these charm pack squares came from Japan Crafts, which is a UK shop. They have lovely things there, all sorts of sashiko kits and just wonderful things. I had actually seen them at the knitting and stitching show, and I've bought things from them before. But it was really interesting to hear the owner talk about her experiences. She'd been to Japan several times and she had lots of textiles from Japan as well. So that was just fascinating and fun to get a little souvenir as well. I also bought, she does sell fabrics by the metre, and so I picked out one of the squares. I've made this with a friend in mind to give to her, and so I just picked out a square that really reminded me of her home and the sort of aesthetic she has in her home, and then I bought the binding in the same colour. And I think this is the first time I've made a quilt that didn't have a scrappy back. So I just popped along. We have a fabulous local quilt fabric shop just over in Bridlington. So I just popped over there and picked up the backing for that. I've used a batting in this, a wadding that's made from recycled bottles, but I've recently been more aware, or sort of become more cognizant of the fact that these man-made fibres get washed out into our waterways. The microfibres get washed out into our waterways when we wash and clean these garments or textile objects. And I had always, you know, I thought this was a great idea for a batting because it's made from recycled bottles, but also I have another quilt that I use at home on our couch where the dogs sit, and I wash it regularly, and the quilt is just, it's a beautiful batting to use. The quilt looks really good still, and so I thought it was a really great idea, and apparently it's not. I still have some left. I'm going to use it up. I've discussed this over on the blog. It's been a bit of a quandary for me and something that I've been ticking over in my mind in terms of all of the man-made fibres that we have in our house. So if you want to know my thought process behind this, please pop over to the blog, leave a comment with your thoughts. That would be really interesting because I know this is a quandary for a lot of us. I think going forward I'd like to avoid buying things with man-made fibres, but there are so many things in the house that I've had for a really long time and have good longevity, and I had no intention of replacing them because they're still going strong. So I think I just have so many questions in my head about what the right thing is to do. So if you're interested, pop over to the blog and have a look at my blog post and let me know what your thoughts are about that. Anyway, as I say, I do have more of this wadding. I'm going to use it up and find an alternative, I think. But that is my Charm Pack Cherry Quilt. Every time I unfold this, I see a new fabric that I'm really enjoying. I love this one here. So, and I'm excited to gift it to my friend. I hope she really likes it. I'm excited and a little bit embarrassed because one of the things I found quite difficult was the linen actually moved about a lot as I cut it and sewed it. So I think by the end of it, there wasn't really a right angle on the whole quilt. So there's a lot of wobbly bits, but I'm going to give it to her. She might just use it as a rug in her car. It'll make a beautiful picnic blanket or something like that, or she might just use it as a throw on her couch or something. In terms of the linen though, I probably should have used a starch or something, but in my world, my experience with starch is that it comes in an aerosol, so I just went forth boldly without. I think I would choose a more stable fabric until I'm more experienced, so just a standard quilter's cotton, until I'm more experienced with using these other types of fabrics. I don't know, I know you can make starch, but I'm not quite sure how you would use that in quilting. I guess it's something to research really, because it would have made it a lot easier to keep these squares square and I think the quilt would have turned out a lot neater. And if I could learn to use those types of unstable fabrics, then I could use up a lot more of my bits and pieces in patchwork, and that would be lots of fun. So yes, that is my finished charm pack cherry quilt. It's not massive. I would say this is kind of it's not a single bed size. I'm guessing the Americans would call it a crib size. I would just call it a throw. It's big enough to put over your legs on the couch. Just before I go, I wanted to give you a little shop update because I have a lovely little stack of cases and Notions case kits that I am making with these beautiful puffins. I really loved this print because it's not often you see images of puffins in flight and they don't look like very aerodynamic little birds. So I love this image with the puffins with some fish in their beaks and their landing gear down. It's just really fun, and the designer specifically made it smaller for me so that I could use it for cases and put it into Notions case kits as well. So you can look out for that coming to the shop this week, and of course if you're subscribe to my newsletter, you'll get the update letting you know when the shop update will be. So that is all from me for today. I hadn't really thought about what my focus for the week will be. I've been working on Jones. I have some socks to finish off as usual, and I hadn't thought about a third thing. The Charm Pack Cherry Quilt was the only sewing project I have going on at the moment. I'm just trying to resist starting a new one and thinking maybe I should have a bit of a fossick about in my bag of unfinished projects and maybe think about cracking on with something else. So definitely Jones and definitely socks. It's all knitting though. We shall see. Anyway, it's been really nice to sit down and have a chat with you. I'm so glad you decided to come and join me, and I hope you'll pop over and join us in the Ravelry group. It's lovely to meet you over there, and I shall chat to you again soon. Cheerio!